This is my video submission for the hashtag RealOCD 2018 International OCD Foundation for hashtag OCD awareness. This is the last day of the awareness week, so I just wanted to kind of share my own experiences and hope that some sort of teachable moment can come out of it. So my name is Raquel Lyons. I'm a 25-year-old psychology BS major at UMass Boston. I have a doggo, a 1.5-year-old doggo named Mocha, who I also call Mokis, and a Chinese hamster named Galaxy, who's going to be 2 years old really soon. And I love rainbows and unicorns and colors and a lot of art, and I'm a huge advocate for mental health and recovery. I live in a recovery lifestyle, in a sense, on my journey doing the things, and this submission is part of that. So I was diagnosed with OCD on self-harm and suicide obsessions back in fall 2014, so 4 years ago, when I was 21. I started having symptoms when I was 19 and first started college, but didn't realize what it was, that it was OCD, until I was diagnosed. It was kind of just some psycho ed that I needed as well, and unfortunately for me, the OCD kind of paved way into depression a few months later. And although I started out definitely having a lot of OCD and having intrusive thoughts of self-harm and suicide that I did not want to act on, I did develop depression, and that did push me over to having genuine thoughts of self-harm and suicide. And unfortunately, I wish I could say that I never acted on anything when I was just OCD, or living with OCD more so. Can't be a disorder, so. But unfortunately, I can't say that, because I did act on things even when I was just living with OCD. Because I felt that maybe if I did what my brain said, maybe maybe it would make the thoughts go away. And I mean, it did, but not for very long. And it was unhealthy, so. I find that living with OCD on self-harm and suicide obsessions is difficult, because I feel I get quadruple the amount of stigma, because not only do I live with self-harm and suicidal thoughts that are genuine and depression-based, but I also live with the intrusive thoughts that are OCD-based. And I find that if I tell someone, hey, I live with OCD on self-harm and suicide obsessions, they think I'm genuinely just being, I'm conveying suicidal intention with, from a depression point of view, which is not the case. And then at the same time, when I'm talking about depressive symptoms, I unfortunately pretty much feel misunderstood all the time, because people don't get it from both points of view at the same time. They only understand it from one lens, rather than the both of them. I also find it difficult too, because I live with OCD on self-harm and suicide, I'm not able to be as open about it, in a way. I mean, depression for me kind of took away the feeling anxious and such. Like, when I was just living with OCD, I wasn't very open about it. But then when I got depression, then I didn't really care anymore. And to me, at that point, suicide was like talking about the weather, which is not good. And it led to a lot of problems and such, because I didn't think I was in a crisis or an emergency, or didn't think I was serious either. Serious about things. But it's hard, because when I if I were to make a video about it, which I have thought about doing before, but if I would make a video about it, it would be too triggering, because it would be specific suicide methods, and that's unethical, and it leads to problems. Like, people would view it as more of a depression-based rather than OCD. So, and then in group settings, it's discouraged to talk openly about explicit methods of suicide, which is totally understandable, and I totally agree with. But that kind of cheats me, because it's like I'm saying it because I'm living with OCD, not like actual genuine thoughts about it. So I've had the ability to have both of those experiences so far. I wish I could also say, for my experiences with this diagnosis, that I never acted on the thoughts when I was just dealing with OCD. Unfortunately, I did act on it, it wasn't nearly as severe as I would nowadays, in a sense, if I were still active in suicidality, which I'm not. I think when I was dealing with OCD, it was a lot of, like, it definitely felt like intrusive thoughts. Like, it was like something I wasn't in line with my values and wasn't something I wanted to do. I was just afraid that I wanted to do it, which, if you live with OCD, that'll totally make sense to you. But I thought at the time that maybe if I acted on it, maybe it would go away. And it would, but not for very long, and it would come back a lot worse. So in that way, acting on my thoughts was a compulsion, because it would give me some type of relief, even if temporary, before getting worse again. Which is different than when I genuinely became suicidal and wanted to end my life, and I thought, you know, people would be better off without me, and there's nothing I can do to make it stop, and I don't want to live like this, and things like that. And my, like, genuine thoughts were more action prone. Like, I was no longer anxious at the thought of an intrusive thought of self-harm or suicide. I was like, I had to go a lot farther to get that anxiety back. I guess I sort of became more immune to the thought, even though the thoughts were nonstop and incessant and really intense and really distress-provoking. And at that time, genuine. It was more genuine. I felt for a while... sorry. I felt for a while that I had to prove how suicidal I was, because nobody would take me seriously unless I acted on my thoughts. And unfortunately, that's just the perspective and the experience that I had, because I thought people would think of it as like, oh, it's just OCD, you live with OCD on that. So that was hard to have to feel that way. I also dealt with a lot of the glorification of suicide in my head, and a lot of fantasies about it, and felt that I was, like, often in too deep. Like, if I'd spent like 3 days just obsessing about suicide, I would feel like, well, I have to act on it now because I wasted that much time, even though if I actually killed myself, I'd be wasting the amount of time in the future that I could have had. But logic doesn't really come into the play in that. I also found out, too, that my drawing about my thoughts and everything and creating art about it was actually a compulsion as well. And that was back in, like, 2015, so that was something that I found out. I also look at diagnosis as more of a fluid spectrum. In the beginning, I fell more under OCD, and now I fall more under borderline tendencies for borderline personality disorder, and, like, depression, and, like, still trichotillomania, and, like, other things like that. The OCD for me is still there. It's more generalized to death in general and involving other people. I still get intrusive thoughts. I'm better at just acknowledging them and then forgetting about them, pretty much. There are still times I get into crisis and such, and have to regulate my emotions and use distress tolerance, and I'm going to a day program 3 days a week, and that helps a lot. And I did a little bit of ERP back in the day, and which is also tricky just because of the situation. But there is hope and there is help. Yeah, so I hope that maybe you learned a little bit of something. Maybe this is like a different perspective on OCD and how comorbid disorders make things very complicated and very complex and gray area and everything to that effect. And I'm very tired of this video, so that's the end of this video. Now I have to try not to obsess about it and do that. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that gave you a little bit of a glimpse into what my life is kind of like, living with remnants of OCD, and I hope that you enjoyed. I said that already, I think I did. And yeah, so stay safe, take care, be well, much love and light to you, and I hope that you have a good weekend, or whenever you're watching this. I guess it doesn't have to fall directly. I'm gonna stop talking.